Happy New Year! Welcome to the Semi-Bookish Podcast.
Season 3 or 4.
This is season 4 now.
Season 4.
Well, I mean, in August is technically when our seasons start, but, whatever. If we want to go by the years, this is season 4.
Okay, alright.
But, whatever.
I wasn't sure how the system worked.
Because August is when we started the podcast.
Okay.
Anyways, welcome to the Semi-Bookish Podcast. It's been like a month. We're sorry.
Just a string of mishaps and
We're
misadventures.
sorry. Listeners, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. There were some complications. The first one being the retirement of one of our own from the library led to a retirement party, and then everyone getting sick except for like a small handful of staff members. So that lasted for 2 weeks. And
then Christmas.
And so, yeah, we haven't been back in a while. Sorry, but we're back today.
It's been a weird few weeks.
Yeah, it's been a weird,
mildly.
it's been a weird month.
And we got a new employee.
And we did get a new employee. However, their introduction will be later on
Yes.
in the semi-bookish theme of worlds. However, for now, they're not here at the moment, but welcome our new youth librarian, Jess. Yay!
Tony's clapping from the other side of the room.
Yeah, so if you can't hear Tony, they are borrowing. Oh, are you guys watching One Piece?
No.
Oh.
I mean, we could.
Be a lot cooler if
because
you weren't.
no one was here when we did watch One Piece.
So, your idea, friends, listeners, if you have teens in the area who want something fun to do in the afternoon, you should come to the library on, every other Tuesday?
Every Tuesday in January and February.
Every Tuesday in January and February, you should come to the library at around 4:15-ish, 4:30. And you
4:15, yeah.
you can hang out with Tony, who is awesome, and talk about anime and watch anime and
Yeah.
whatever you want. I think that'd be great. I think that'd be fun. So there's your little plug for something happening. And if you'd like something to do, is it every Saturday every other Saturday that you're here
Boggle
until February?
Yes.
We're having a teen Boggle tournament. I've never played Boggle in my entire life, and I'd like to watch.
I don't even know what Boggle is.
Sure.
I think it's something like a Scrabble. Is it kind of like a Scrabble?
It is better than Scrabble.
It's better than Scrabble. Those are some words, Tony.
Yeah. Shots fired at
Here's
Scrabble.
my problem with Scrabble is that I'm really bad at it, so I am not a fan of Scrabble.
I've also never played Scrabble. I've played Wordscapes.
With Boggle, it is more of pattern recognition as words. So you have this little, 9x9 cube sort of box, and each cube has letters on all sides. And so you juggle it or jiggle it, and all the squares, they all, because it's in a enclosed case. So you just jiggle the case while it's enclosed. All the letters will shake up, and then you wait until they settle, and then you set the timer.
And they have to come up with words from
everyone
that?
who's looking at that is all looking at the same thing, but you have to come up with words from that pattern, from what you see in all of those. Yeah.
Okay.
And then and then afterwards, how you win or how you determine who won is all three of us would then look at, or we would read off our words. So if I'm reading off my words, inevitably there's going to be a lot of similar
Overlap.
words like A-R-E-T-H-E, and so all the ones that I have that you also have, you cross out, and whoever's left standing with the most words, the
Wins?
most unique words, wins.
Is it? Are the words that you're allowed to get? Is it like anything goes? They don't have to connect to each other.
No, they have to connect to each other.
The words have to connect.
Like the letters have to connect to form the word. So
Okay.
it can be around like a corner, or it can be like next to each other, but as long as you can see that they connect, like a crossword puzzle, then that's the word.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That was my question, because I was like, Wordscapes is kind of not like that. It's one of those apps games where
I've played Wordscapes. It's similar, but not exactly the same.
I don't
Yeah.
exactly play it. My mom plays it, and sometimes she can't find words, and so she'll turn around and she'll be like, "Here's my Kindle in my hand." She'll do this in front of me, and I'll just be like,
Yeah.
she'll be like, "Oh, okay, there you go."
So it's similar, but not exactly the same. All right.
So I'd like to know what everyone is reading before we get into the episode.
Okay, as is tradition.
I will start
Yes.
because I'm not reading anything right now. I am having the hardest time figuring out what book I want to start my year out with. Mm-hmm. There's a strong part of me, I make no promises, but there's a strong part of me that wants to read Unsold by Will White, which is the first of the Cradle series, but that's just because I promised my boyfriend that I would at least read one of the series this year that he's trying to get me to read, and I figure why start small? Let's go with the 12-book one. But I haven't started yet because the last time I tried, I was so bored. Because I have heard from, not just from my boyfriend, but from like many different YouTubers too, that the first couple of Cradle books are really hard to get through because they're so slow. Because they're building up to everything that's coming. So that's, I have to just adjust my mental mindset to that. Mental mindset, you know what I mean? I have to adjust my mindset to that kind of book. And I don't know, anything that I read right now at this moment, because it's the beginning of the year, feels like homework. So I don't know where to start. Like I'm just like, so I'm not reading anything right now.
Are you playing anything?
I'm playing a lot of Gotham Knights right now.
I said that very pointedly because I knew exactly what Tony's playing.
Yes, because I had an itch for it, and I love that game anyway, so playing it again, I have a goal of playing Tim Drake across as much of it as possible because I have focused less on Tim than any of the other characters in all of my other playthroughs.
I love Tim.
So, and there have been many playthroughs. So this time Tim is not only the best player because I literally leveled him up as much as possible across 3 different games before this one, and I've just been hitting continue the whole time.
There's New Game Plus.
Yeah, there's New Game Plus, yeah, and you can just keep going, and the only change I made this time was leveling up the difficulty, which, if you played enough Gotham Knights, is not really all that more difficult for a while, and then you start getting in, like, the Court of Owls and the League of Shadows. Once those characters start emerging, you're just like, oh, I forgot that this game could be this hard.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm playing. What am I watching right now? Oh, that's another thing. Right now, what I want to watch, I don't know. Everything's up in the air, and I feel like anything that I watch right now, like I just finished my rewatch of Game of Thrones that I started super late last year. But that was only the last 3 episodes, of finishing it. So I feel like I'm not really, like, attached to a desire to watch anything right now. Which is weird for me. But, who knows? One night I'll just finish The Crown and call it a day. I don't know. So anyway, Grant, what are you reading, watching, playing, entertained by?
Entertained by?
Okay, so as far as books go, I'm reading a few things. They're all vaguely connected.
Ooh.
So, a few episodes ago.
Yes.
A few episodes ago.
I can't rightly remember which episode it was, but I made a passing comment, and Tony called me out on it.
Oh, no.
Where I said that the entirety of human civilization is built around death. And,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and eventually, later that day, after the podcast and everything, I came with my explanation to you, and I mentioned the writings of Peter Zapfa and Martin Heidegger and stuff.
Are you reading them?
I'm not reading them. However, little did I know there's a whole gosh darn book about this subject that actually won the Pulitzer Prize
Oh.
Okay.
posthumously.
Sure.
It is,
That's only fitting.
of course, yes.
Fair.
It's The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker.
Oh.
And he pretty much proposes exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
And I have a little quote. Basically, he sums it up in one sentence.
Don't you hate people who can do that?
I know. It's almost like he wrote it.
Yeah, right.
He says, in The Denial of Death, I argue that man's innate and all-encompassing fear of death drives him to attempt to transcend death through culturally standardized hero systems and symbols. And part of that is basically how people and groups of people create immortality projects, which can be national identities, religions, blah, 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 blah.
Publishing companies.
As a defense mechanism, basically as a way to create meaning.
Yeah.
So he out of nothing.
Yeah,
So,
precisely.
And what he posits basically, if humans were left to their own devices, if they were actually, like us as self-conscious beings, if we were to actually have full unfettered access to the true nature of reality, we'd go insane. Like the knowledge of our own temporality and our death.
Well, sign me up. I'm down for it. I'll do it.
Interesting.
No, and like it's like this book has rocked me in like genuinely in a way that a nonfiction book hasn't in a really long time.
Sure.
Grant is shook.
I am shook. Because it vibes with my hunches and stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that I agree with him on everything. He has some questionable views on homosexuality.
Well,
It happens.
It was the late 70s, which doesn't help his case, but
precisely. Yes.
I think he's a very smart individual. With some questionable views.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But overall, it's a very, very interesting book. Like I said, it won the Pulitzer Prize after he died of cancer. I believe he wrote it. He wrote it while he had cancer. I'm not sure. So this is kind of like a final hurrah! Fighting against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
But he backs it up with a lot of interesting studies, and a lot of it has to do with psychoanalysis, which I know some people are kind of iffy on the efficacy of that.
Sure.
But overall, in broad strokes, I very much vibe with this. And so kind of related, I'm also reading Oedipus, Myth and Complex, which is just it's a basically point by point walkthrough of like the big names in psychoanalysis.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. Sure.
Grant is busy being an academic.
Well,
I love it.
no, I'm actually excited about stuff, which is...
No, I love that. That's exciting.
Hyperfixation.
Honestly. Yeah.
Did forget to mention that the one thing I am actually watching, I am taking my sweet precious time with, because 25 episodes should go much faster, but oh my god, I am living for Berserk 1997.
Oh, thank God.
It is so...
Berserk is goated.
It is so divine. It is just unbelievable, a masterpiece. I really want to read it, but again, thanks to my, loving boyfriend, he went off on this whole thing just from seeing the one issue I have checked out. He went on this whole thing of like why he's obsessed with Berserk, and then he was like, all right, but seriously, we're gonna watch Berserk, right? And I was like, of course we are, after you just talked about it that way. And we had to do the 1997 one simply because he goes, oh yeah, we have to do this one because the music is right.
Oh,
and he's so right.
The creator, after the series came out, the creator would listen to the soundtrack from the adaptation while he was writing.
No way. So I can't really speak to it as an adaptation, but I can speak to it as a story, as an anime that I am watching. It is unbelievably breathtaking, and yet at the same time, it is quite simply a courtly romance.
In a way, yeah.
The utter queerness between Griffith and Guts is so obvious, and that's the whole point. And if you miss that, it's because you either aren't queer, so you're not thinking that way, or you have no idea what a courtly romance is, that's a huge component of the courtly romance, is this, very beautiful, attractive, almost angelic being who is constantly denying and rejecting those who are most attracted to them. Usually it's a woman, in the courtly romances of old, but there's a whole tradition of courtly romances where this is happening between two men, and the one man is this beautiful, angelic, Griffith-like being, and the other one is this like rough and tumble like knight with the sword that can kill all people, the black swordsman. Guts. So it's layered. The layers of that story are just unbelievable.
If you haven't seen it or read it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm 15 episodes in now, and I want those last 10 episodes to really take time. It's a beautiful story. So that's where I'm at.
Don't look it up online, please.
The last 10 episodes?
Don't look up anything about it. That's all I say.
Okay, thank you. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to know.
Just avoid discussion.
Good. Thankfully, I'm already obsessed, so that helps me to not want to watch anybody talk about it just yet. So
cool.
I had to get that out.
Yes, Aaron.
Oh, hi!
Sorry.
What are you
I kind
being
of also forgot that I was here.
entertained by? This will
So,
pull you
first
back
of all, yeah, I'm playing Gotham Knights too, because,
Yep.
I opened it up and then didn't realize that it had updated and it allows cross-play now. So, was it Saturday or Friday?
Yes, it was Saturday.
First
No,
thing
it was
is-
Friday.
Friday. It was
Yeah.
the evening. So Tony was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go play Gotham Knights,"
Which
at
I
the
didn't
end
do
of the
until
day, Friday.
Saturday, but, whatever.
And I was like, I also want to play Gotham Knights. So I went back because, I'm obsessed because Tim Drake and Richard Grayson exist.
It's true.
That's all I need to care about, by the way, is they exist. Anyway, so I opened it up and it was like, oh yeah, crossplay exists. And so I text Tony and I go, Tony, it's got crossplay. Because my brain goes, and when I finish it, we can play.
It's true. Yeah.
So I was like, yay!
Yeah.
Anyways, so, I'm rolling through Tim Drake right now.
Nice.
Still, because, I have to.
Of course.
And I'm trying to figure out where I want to put every single... Because I like to play it for my first round. How I want to do is I want every single character have their own.
That's how I did it when I first played, yeah.
And I'm trying to decide who I want where. And I don't really care if they're like a bad matchup because I think of it as a challenge.
Exactly, it is.
And so,
Yeah.
therefore, I'm just going, all right, so who do I want here? So I have Nightwing. I have him in Court of Owls land right now just because
It's a fairly even fight with him.
canon-wise it kind of makes sense a little bit, but, and then for a hot minute, I had Jason doing Mr. Freeze for a hot minute, and then I switched for
Yeah.
I'm on mission 4 for Mr. Freeze. But, like, for mission
Oh, yeah.
3, I switched to Tim for a hot second, and it worked pretty well. And I was like, okay. And I was going to have Tim do Harley, and now I might switch.
Across the board with that game,
But then that leaves Babs with Clayface, and I'm like, do I really want to leave Babs with Clayface?
I used Babs for Clayface this time, which I've never done before, and she fits well enough, but but again, that increased difficulty. Just not the first Clayface mission where you're like trying to figure out, wait, is this Clayface? But the one where you actually go confront him for the first time, which, as you know,
I haven't even
is
done-
not that hard.
No.
It's not. But when you're on the hard level and you've leveled all of your characters up, it was a painful 15 minutes.
Because isn't he the last one that pops up? Or is it Court of Owls? that's the
I
last one?
think, well, it depends on how you play it, really. Court of Owls, if you take Clayface on, because it looks like a street fight initially, because he's in all these different locations around New
Right.
Gotham.
No, so I did the
if
first
you
Clayface
don't
mission.
do
I'm not on the second one.
Yeah, if you don't do the first Clayface mission before Court of Owls, then he'll probably show up after, if that makes sense, because he just keeps...
Yeah. So the weird part is I
Respawning.
think I actually unlocked him, like his whole entire mission set. I unlocked it after the Court of Owls started.
Interesting. Sure. Sure.
And I'm not entirely sure how I did that, and I don't remember how I did that. Don't ask me that question because
Yeah.
it's been like a few months since I've touched it. Anyways,
Yes.
reading.
What are you reading?
So right now I have Nightwing Volume 1. It's the Tom Taylor one?
Ah, yeah.
It's Leaping into Light.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
read that
obsessed
one,
with the dog at the moment.
Yeah, you were telling me about the dog, yeah.
Dog
Yeah.
is cute. I also ranted at Grant about the dog, so
Aw.
I hope it becomes a crime-fighting dog.
we want it to be crypto.
Well, I mean, honestly, Batman has always had Ace is the name they gave him in Batman Beyond, but there's always been a Bat dog as long as there's been a Batman, so...
And then
Why not?
also at the same time, I didn't realize that I was reading the novelization. I thought it was the webtoon version, but it's okay. On my actual Kindle, not on Hoopla, I'm reading Under the Oak Tree by Suji Kim. So it's a webtoon.
Okay.
So the initial webtoon is Maxie. Her name is actually Maximilian, but whatever.
Okay.
She's the eldest daughter of a family, and she's got a lot of trauma from her dad or whatever. And so she has like a whole entire inferiority complex. It's like a whole thing, right? And so her dad decides to, because he's received this order to fight something or whatever, he marries her off to some peasant knight guy. And so he wants to push off his like martial like responsibilities to this peasant knight instead of having to deal with it himself.
Sure.
So he's like, I don't want to go fight. I'm going to make this guy marry my daughter and then send him off instead. So I don't have to do anything. Like, it's a whole thing. So she's basically thrust into this marriage. She has no idea who this guy is. She has no idea what's going on. Except for the fact that she's marrying him. She's freaking out because she has the inferiority complex. They, spend the first night together because they have to, because this is like kind of like medievally like court style things.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the next day. And he's gone for 3 years.
Okay.
And so now he's come back to the city because he's won the war.
Yeah.
They're still married. Basically, Dad was thinking like he was going to die or whatever, so he didn't have to go into battle himself.
But he ended up marrying his daughter off to a hero.
Yeah. And so she thinks that because they're going to be strangers now, Maxie thinks because they're going to be strangers now, he's going to absolutely hate her, want to divorce her, which will ruin her entire life. Because she doesn't know what to do after that, because she thinks she's pretty much going to, like, die after that.
She does have an inferiority complex. Wow.
So she thinks he's just basically going to, like, dump her immediately as he comes into the town.
Right.
And go for somebody else.
Yeah.
No, so I read a little bit of the webtoon before I read the actual, like, this.
Book, yeah.
So, no, he comes in and he's, like, obsessed. Because he's like, this is my wife.
Yeah.
I love my wife. Like, she's fantastic.
Wow.
And so now they have to navigate finding each other through, like, now, because it's been 3 years, they don't know each other.
Right,
like,
exactly. Wow.
I've been married to this guy I've never seen, or I haven't seen in like 3.5 years. What am I supposed to do with this? Like, kind of thing. Yeah. And then I'm also watching on Crunchyroll the first episode of
the new Solo Leveling.
Solo Leveling came out, which I read the whole series, as we all know.
Yeah.
Solo Leveling came out, so this is the first episode. Basically, the whole entire thing's about Jinwoo, who is the world's weakest hunter. He's only brought in specifically so they can use him as bait. Mm-hmm. And he and a group of people go into a dungeon, and everything goes wrong, and it basically becomes where when he wakes up, it basically turns into he's like a gamer, and like a screen will pop up in front of him and say like, your level up tasks for the day are to do these things.
So basically it's like it's a lit RPG but in a it's not an anime, a manga. It is a manga. Is it a manga?
It's
a Korean manga. Okay, all right, yeah. So it's basically like the lit RPG, but in a.
However, I actually
form.
like it a lot.
Yeah, I've heard it's really
there
good.
is an actual like storyline like attached to it. Like, there's like a guy who like dies eventually, and then his brother, who's like the head of like Hunters Guild over here in this area, finds out about it.
Yeah.
And realizes that this guy is alive, and like Jinwoo's alive and killed him. And so now he's gonna try to go against, like, there's like a whole thing, and the whole entire reason that Jinwoo is even a hunter in the first place is because his mom is ill.
Huh.
And so he's trying to fix his mom.
Fun.
And then also Sign of Affection came out.
Okay.
Which is the other manga that I'm obsessed with, which is the girl who is deaf, and yeah, it's a romance manga, whatever.
Nice,
so that's what I'm doing. Anyways, so let's go into this topic that I know very little about. So this is a back episode for people who would like a little bit of context.
Yes.
Last month was Grant's birthday.
Hooray! Happy birthday!
And we were going to have a birthday episode for Grant, except for, then, everything went...
Yes.
So...
HE double hockey sticks broke loose.
Yes.
So we are having Grant's episode. So Grant, what is today's topic?
So today it's not book related, so please forgive me, dear listeners.
This
However,
is the ish of semi-bookish.
this is the
what are you
ish.
talking
This is the
about?
ish. I know. I'm the ish. I bring it. So this is one of my favorite television shows. It's BoJack Horseman. And,
Yay.
I wrote a little introduction literally while I was just upstairs so people who aren't familiar with it, I can just give a
Great,
concise.
thanks. I enjoy that. Thanks.
I love it.
Love
All right.
that.
So, BoJack Horseman is an animated show created by Raphael Bob Waksberg that premiered on Netflix on August 22nd, 2014, and ran for 6 seasons before airing its last episode on January 31st, 2020. The show is nominally an animated sitcom following the trials and tribulations of washed-up 90s TV actor BoJack Horseman, an actual horse. His similarly anthropomorphized acquaintances Princess Caroline, Bojack's manager / ex-girlfriend, and Mr. Peanut Butter, Bojack's oblivious.
I love him.
Bojack's oblivious and doggedly optimistic acting rival.
Rude.
As well as the humans Todd, Bojack's deadbeat roommate, and Diane, whom Bojack has hired to ghostwrite his memoir in a bid to restart his career.
Yeah.
Quickly, however, it becomes clear that the show has ambitions beyond the endless loop of sitcom plot contrivances in which each new episode is a blank slate and ends with a clear-cut moral message, typified in-universe by Horsing Around, the trashy Full House-esque show that made Bojack famous. Mm-hmm. We witness strikingly profound meditations on fame, mental illness, death, the entertainment industry, power dynamics, abuse, sexuality, inherited trauma, forgiveness, and many other topics and ways that many quote-unquote serious shows wouldn't and perhaps couldn't dare to. All the while finding time for the well-timed zoological pun. Over its 77 episodes, Bojack Horseman subverts the expectations of both genre and form, becoming an unapologetically bleak dissection of its characters' psyches while never forsaking its inherent comedic strengths. It is, like life, both deeply funny and deeply sad. The show has garnered great acclaim, not only for its consistently superb writing, but for its unforgettable characters and formal innovation in a medium, animation, that is too often content to churn out the same tired cliches despite its many latent possibilities. Mm-hmm. During its run, it won multiple awards and nominations, and the show still boasts a dedicated fan base. In fact, just this year, IndieWire named Bojack Horseman the greatest animated show of all time in its yearly updated list. Now, Tony, you are the
I feel like you were just read me a dissertation, and I feel like I need you to write a PhD thesis on Bojack Horseman.
I'm also not prepared for the now Tony.
Now, Tony,
I'm terrified.
I believe you're the one that actually introduced me to the show and convinced me to watch it.
Yeah.
You along with a fellow coworker.
Sure.
So when did you first watch it? What were your initial thoughts? And what are your thoughts now?
So I first watched it 2 years ago now. Yeah, so it would have been in 2022. I think spring, summer was when I watched it. So I think we were done by early summer. Started it with a friend of mine, and because he loved it so much, and he had seen it all the way through 4 or 5 times by that point. So he was very, very familiar with it. We started by watching just random episodes, because it does, as it has that sitcom kind of thing to it, you can just watch random episodes out of order.
Especially towards the first half of the show.
Yes. So the first 3 seasons I think we picked more out of than the last 3 seasons, because, as you know, the last 3 seasons start to loop things together, and you start getting, which is very typical, actually, of sitcoms. Their early seasons are very, situational and meant to make you laugh. And then later on, as you know these characters more, you get more serious, longer form storytelling kinds of things. Anyway.
All of the Full House storytelling style.
Yeah, Full House, Friends, Frasier, they all do it at different points. But it's a sitcom staple. What did I think when I first saw it? I think when I first saw it, I didn't know what to think. And I didn't want to formulate thoughts too quickly because I was enjoying it. Certainly more than I would have imagined. This is not Rick and Morty people. For one, it's actually funny.
I'll forgive you for that. I enjoy Rick and Morty.
I know. Plenty of people do. You can all hate me later. But
send your flames to 143.
you really can.
Send it to Dan.
But it's funny in a different... Okay, so the biggest problem I have with Rick and Morty and shows like it, because it's certainly not the only one like it, is that, like many animated shows for adults, they have a roster of jokes that they tell, and they all tell them differently. There is no separation between the jokes on Archer and the jokes on Rick and Morty. One just has time traveling, as its core component, and the other one has a spy. I'm doing air quotes here. A spy company as its core base, but the jokes are the same.
Or there's a law firm. Hi, Harvey Birdman at law.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I love Harvey Birdman at law. Don't get me wrong.
But that's the thing, is that it was an astute observation that you made about how often, no matter which place the animation is coming from, you are almost always supposed to work in stereotypes. I mean, that's expected of you. It's what you do to make your name. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go a little bit more edgy and bold, you do that later. You certainly do not do that with your very first animated something out the gate. Yeah, right. So, but this,
out the gate.
But the creator of the show, I mean, honestly, it's remarkable that one man wrote so much of the show. Mm-hmm. It's because how can one mind use any medium to that degree? But
and not to downplay the other people in the writing, but he had a very large presence.
He did, yeah. And you find, what I often found myself doing as I was first watching it was thinking, which I do this a lot if I'm impressed by a show, I kept thinking, yeah, but what are they not telling us? Like there's so much of it that's in there that you're like, yeah, that was supposed to be a joke. Like, it was played as a joke. But was it a joke? Like, was it one of those situations that was so funny that they had to write it into the show because no one would believe that it was real? So it has to be a punchline? Or, you know what I mean? That was my thing. I was just trying to figure out where were they pulling from? Because it, by turns, comments on, our obsessive Hollywoodized culture. But it also, in the same breath, will comment on how balancing one's life as a woman, if you intend to do anything other than have children, is challenging. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it with a character that's a cat. Mm-hmm. Like, she literally, often as a punchline, will start scratching things in her office. Sometimes those things are scratching posts, and sometimes they're not.
One of my
but
favorite
she's a cat.
Is the mailman bit. With peanut butter in the car.
Oh, yes.
Peanut butter. Okay. Sorry, it's one of the scenes that I've actually seen is the peanut butter in the car.
Yeah.
The cop pulls him over and he goes, I'm sorry. It was just me and the mailman having a thing. And the mailman pulls up and he's like, wait, just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's cute.
It's layered with jokes like that. And yet at the same time, it is so searing. And I never like to say that a piece of entertainment is important, because I feel as though that is taking away from the individual viewer's ability to say no to something.
Yeah.
Just because something is important doesn't necessarily make it... Just because what something is saying is important to say doesn't mean it has to be said this way, if that mm-hmm. makes sense. But I can't think of any better way that so many of those subjects were covered, particularly in the same show, mm-hmm. than in Bojack. I mean...
And I think it's because of exactly what the show is.
Yes.
And how it's made that it works. That those topics come across as well thought out as they do.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. I'm assuming you had more questions.
Well, really quick, I'll add something. Like, specifically with the main character. With a character as problematic and... disturbing, just self-destructive, mm-hmm. Destructive in general mm-hmm. as him. I don't know if they would have gone as far, or if people would have accepted a live-action drama maybe going as far, because I don't know how far people would have identified with him. I feel like they're kind of in a way lulled in with the expectation. Oh, they're anthropomorphic animals. It's going to be this goofy show.
That's what the first 3 seasons are for. They're just there to lure you in.
And in essence, it is a goofy show.
Yes,
but it's a lot more than that. So, yes.
It's a lot more than that. I mean, I think that if it would have been a live action, it would have been canceled fast. Mm-hmm. Because one, you have to sell people on the fact that these are animals. Yeah. And it's so much easier to do in an animation because we've all seen, Zootopia saying. I mean, we get it. That's the whole. It's like the difference between how many picture books, right, have. If you were to ask me, could you help me find picture books about cows, or dogs, or roosters, or
ducks?
There's a whole category. There are categories on categories about these. I mean, let alone cats and dogs. Like, are you kidding me? Because kids accept the idea that anything could talk because they haven't been proven that it can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole, you have that expectancy. So it's easier to sell me about it. It's easier to sell me the Cat in the Hat in a picture book. You try to take that same concept and write it for adults, it's not going to be easy because your adult audience is automatically going, wait a minute, so I'm supposed to follow a talking bear who also plays the saxophone? Time out, I'm done. So, similar things with Bojack. It just would not have worked as well in that way. But I also think, again, to your point about how serious, if you look at disturbing sitcom characters in the past, I'm talking about everybody from Sheldon Cooper all the way back to Diane Chambers on Cheers. And there's, Archie Bunker even further back, right? They can only go so far because this is a real human being saying real words or words approximate to how you would think someone would say that. Archie Bunker can be as racist all day long as he really is, but if there's no redemption arc, no one wants to remember Archie Bunker, even from back then. He's not funny anymore at a certain point because society is leaning towards an area of saying, can we not be as racist as we were before? And so television...
It also banks on how much the actor who is playing that character wants to do the things that are, within that character's purview. So,
Yeah, we all know that television in Hollywood, they're all more conservative than we are.
Yeah.
As real people.
100%.
Yeah, so to find something like Bojack that is so... It's not even that it's liberal. It is its own special classification of a thing.
It's honest.
It's yes, and that is something we are not used to.
Not honest in the way that some... I don't even want to get into it. But not honest in the way some people would say, but it's just...
Yeah, it is. It's very honest, yeah.
So... is it okay if I direct another question at Tony first?
Yeah, you can direct as
Okay.
many questions at Tony as you so feel like. I will
All right.
interrupt with what I want. However, the only character I will say right now that, I have a weird attachment to, and that's just because I was watching clips, and, I find them hilarious, is Peanut Butter.
No, Mr. Peanut Butter, it's easy to get attached to Mr. Peanut Butter. I will say that...
Granted, that's because I was watching the ski scene.
Oh, I love that
that's
episode.
that is a good episode.
It's so good.
It's one of the last, out-and-out, fun
Yes,
episodes.
it is one of the last out and out, yes.
I just sat there and I was like, oh, is this some Dead Poets
my
Society adjacent?
favorite line from that episode that my friend and I will frequently we will shout this at each other all the time, and people watching us go down the street will just look at us like we are the craziest people in the world. We just scream, "Go with Charles!" Literally, just because it's so funny. Yeah. Anyway.
Also, the paying kindergartners $50,000 so you can make a movie about Jack.
Yes.
There's so many quotes from just name an episode and that.
Yeah.
So the next question I was going to ask, I know you started watching it out of order, and I'll kind of answer my own question first.
Sure.
But for me, there was a turning point where I was like, wow, this show is its own thing. It's something else. And it really worked for me. And that was Escape from LA in season 2, which is the episode where he goes to visit his old flame, the deer.
By the way, listeners, if you haven't guessed it already, we will have spoilers.
Yes,
so,
spoilers
if you actually want to watch the show without spoilers...
It's a hard show to spoil. Really the only way you can spoil it is if you talk about the last 2 seasons.
Yes.
I think. But yeah, that is a huge turning point.
At the end of that episode, because it starts out how the show, at the end of the episode, my jaw was just dropping. It hits you.
It does.
I probably wouldn't be the best person to describe that episode, but why? But
is that the episode that ends with?
Well, the whole episode has a.
It's not the one where he's watching the Mustangs run and do all of that thing.
No, that's the ending
later.
of. That's later.
That's later. Okay.
That's a really good scene though.
Yeah, it is.
It ends whatever season. That's the end of 3 or 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But so basically he goes to it's either Oklahoma or New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico.
It's New Mexico.
To hoping to reconnect with this old flame of his, like I said, and it turns out she has a family, Kyle and the kids, which has a very memorable kind of sitcom-esque intro. Once after she introduces them to the family, it's really funny and heartbreaking at the same time. Because Well, he's going there with unrealistic expectations. Like, I'm gonna marry this person, and my life's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You still feel for him.
Did you?
Yeah, to a certain extent, by the end of the episode, however,
Yes.
your loyalty is tested, to say the least.
Yes.
And it gets into some legitimately disturbing territory,
Mm-hmm.
which will come back to haunt him later, towards the very end of the series, in very...
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like the later episodes where it comes back to haunt him a lot more than I like that initial episode. Because the initial episode, you're still in that... It is a turning point, for sure, because it's the first time you see something really serious that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the cast. I mean, Bojack is frequently... with Diane, they're frequently casually conversing and laughing about really serious stuff, like heavy, like, why is Diane on so much medication? And she's like, well, I don't know, because I wake up every day thinking that I shouldn't be here, and sometimes I think I should do something about it. And then she just says it that casually, like it's like the most funny thing in the world. And then Todd, who has no clue, will go, or who you think has no clue, will just go, oh, rad, and then go get drunk. And that's a run of, I mean, that's really how so much of the first few seasons of that show is. And you have to, before you can handle the heavy dosages of stuff that come later,
They spoon feed it to you.
yeah. I mean, there's a genius episode. I think it's probably either late season 3, early season 4. It's the one with where Wanda Sykes and Issa D. Oh, I guess that's not her last name anymore. But they're they voice cast a lesbian couple. So there's 2 black women who are meeting for dinner.
Is this the one where
And
he like
both
talks to her, Bojack talks to her in like the bathroom or whatever?
I don't think so.
No. So these 2 women, the setup of the episode is these 2 women are both therapists, and they sit down at dinner and they talk around their day by giving details that only the audience, even the other spouse, does not know, that they're talking about these specific characters. And as the episode is going along, you see their day unfold, and you're like, oh my God, so the person that she's telling her wife about is Diane. And then the other woman, as she's talking, starts giving identifiers, and you're like, wait a minute, so she's counseling the reason Diane needs counseling? What's going on? And they don't realize it until the end of the episode, but the viewer has already put everything together based on either their conversation or what you see as their day unfolds. That, just stuff like that is so brilliant, because what you're saying about your cast of characters is these people believe that they have real problems, whether they do or not, enough to go to therapy, and they're even causing their therapists to have problems. That's how bad their problems are.
I think the funniest thing is you're saying that they're just giving identifiers and not names. And we have to do that in real life too, because like if you work at a hospital, or you work at a school, or you work at a library, because patron privacy laws, like when we talk about like let's say like we go home, like let's say you go home to your SO, right? And you say like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the day at work I've had today. And they go, okay, so what about it? You can't exactly give names because there's privacy laws involved. So when you're describing it, like if you were describing to us as your audience, like to Grant and I, like your day, and you're only using those identifiers, we would probably know exactly who you're talking about, and it's kind of the same way.
Thing,
so
but
it's
you're doing
really,
it with your entire audience.
And it's really funny to see like the 2 therapists are talking around their day, but then you realize it's because one, it's how their jobs work, because that's how my brain went immediately, because I'm like, my mom used to work for the schools doing parapro stuff, and she couldn't tell me kids' names.
Right.
And then when I went to I was in the same year that she was working at the 5-6 building, so like I knew the kids. Right. And she couldn't tell me names, but she would give identifiers, and I would go, oh, it's this one. Oh, it's this one. Oh, it's that one. I wouldn't tell her that I knew which names, like, who was who, but I would be like, oh, it has to be this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, that's such a, like...
But it's the only episode like itself. That was the other thing that I love about that show, is you get these unique episodes that are like nothing you've seen in any other place you've seen things, but they're also unlike any other episode in the show. Yeah. And of course, Free Churro is the one episode that gets that mark more than anything else.
Deservedly to a point.
Deservedly,
yeah, I mean,
yes.
It's for those. I mean, spoilers. So it's So basically, the whole episode is well, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, if you don't, okay, listen. If you're watching, if you're watching the show, and by the time you get to Free Churro, which is deep into the show, if you have any idea that Bojack's mother is going to make it out of this show alive, this is the spoileriest episode. So she's dead.
Listen,
his mom
I don't think you
Yes.
understand.
His mom
Grant
dies.
gave me a look, and then Tony gave me a look.
Because-
when Grant said spoilers, like they want me to care about the spoilers. I'm like, why do I care?
No, his mom does that. Yes.
So his mother dies, and basically the entire episode is a monologue given by Will Arnett at his mother's funeral. Will Arnett plays
Yeah,
Bojack.
well, it's the voice
Okay.
of Bojack. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
And it's not only a masterclass in voice acting, it's a masterclass in television writing, in just so many other things. You'll laugh, like he'll bring you up, right, and then it's simultaneously extremely depressing and honest, and like the show itself.
Yes.
And then
So the theme of the show.
yeah, he'll sideline you with a hilarious. In fact, the whole episode ends in a really dark punchline, where he's not even at the right funeral.
And you think, yes, exactly. And you think, right? Like if that was because that is a great introductory episode to some degree. Like,
Tonally
wise, yes, it's a great introductory episode to let you know, like, oh, this is what you're getting yourself in for. But anything you watch after Free Churro, because Free Churro is another turning point, but you don't realize it until you start watching episodes after that, because every episode after Free Churro punches hard.
No, it's unrelenting.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't let up. Like, you think, like, the penultimate episode is awful.
Yeah, it's like I would compare it to Granite State, which is the second to last episode of Breaking Bad, where everything horrible you can imagine happens. So.
Yes. And even the final episode is not...
It's not blindly hopeful. It's rather ambiguous.
I don't even know that it's hopeful.
There's a level of acceptance, maybe.
Yes, I think the only character who has any hope in that is the one getting married, and I'm not spoiling that for you guys. But
I would say another character has a fairly bright future ahead of him. But
really? Who would you say?
I would say Todd, but
that's true. Yes, actually, I would agree with that.
By the way,
that's kind of Todd.
Yes, not to take away from, not to distract. Or,
No, go ahead.
but I can't really think of any other television show or really any media before that tackled with asexuality that openly as they did with Todd's character later in the show.
You see a lot of discourse around it with Sheldon and Amy in Big Bang Theory, but they limit themselves because, again, it's that live action thing, and they were very careful not to make asexual people look like punchlines, because you have an entire cast of people who are, I mean, the show begins with all of these nerdy guys convincing the audience that they have sex drives, right? So how in the world are you also going to then introduce two other characters who are at a conflict within their relationship over the amount of sex that either one of them wants to have? And so there's a really interesting ace conversation happening there, but the word's never said, and it's never given too much serious conversation for too long, because there are other things you have to deal with. But with Todd, they say the word. Isn't there a song?
I can't remember. I'm
There's
not
almost
sure.
always a
But
song
there's
with
a
Todd.
lot of
But
a blatant discussion.
There is, yeah, and yeah, I think it's certainly the most serious take on asexuality I've ever seen in a TV show.
Which, once again, is ironic coming from a show about talking animals.
Exactly. Yes, and the fact that they did it with a human character, and that they're having this conversation with his axolotl girlfriend. Yes, Todd gets an axolotl girlfriend, and
I love that.
She's the one who is like, have you ever considered that you're probably asexual? And he was just like, why do we have to put a label on it? And she's like, no. This is not a bad label. This is one that you should probably think about for longer than 5 seconds. And Todd never does that. The whole point of Todd is that he's not a thinking person. No, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't take anything seriously. That's his whole role in the show.
To his advantage and detriment.
Precisely. But what's fascinating about this moment is that he actually spends the rest of the episode trying to pin it down. Like, he's just like, wait a minute, but is this really true about myself? It's a remarkable moment for a character that could easily have just been a throwaway comedic thrill. The character you bring on to make everybody laugh and then you push them off again. No, they don't allow any of their characters to be that, which is
Another thing that I feel the show does pretty well, specifically in regards to, I guess in regards to multiple characters. When you get into their backgrounds, it provides a necessary understanding of why they are who they are, without excusing any of their less savory behavior.
Yeah.
I feel like it walks that tightrope very well.
Yeah, certainly.
Especially with Bojack himself, when you see his family history.
Yeah.
In some very memorable flashback episodes. And one of which is basically a horror movie, in my opinion.
Which one?
Times Arrow, where you're following his mother specifically while she's suffering from dementia. You're jumping through.
Yes.
Which
and
is
her life. I mean, it's just horrible. Like, you think...
Despite her immense privilege being born into this, but,
But also just her incredible savagery before that.
Yeah.
You, in order to relate to, or at least to sympathize with or for Bojack, up until that point, it's always been at the cost of slighting his mother. And if you have any kind of, issue in your parental relationships, it's really powerful to, recognize, oh yeah, this guy became what he became, especially after you look at the sitcom that he was on, which is all about family dynamics. It's easy to assume, he just becomes this person because his mother was a dreadful woman who married an awful, neglectful man, and, but then that episode where you're hopping around in her life story, you realize, wait a minute, I've just been judging a person whose life story I didn't even know. And now that I know her life story, no wonder she married, the awful guy and was a terrible mom. I mean, it's the kind of thing that people spend their whole lifetimes trying to figure out in or outside of therapy, and the show does it in 6 seasons.
And it's one of those constant discussions people have, nature versus nurture and stuff. So
yeah. I mean, that is one of the reasons I think it is a powerful show, because it's so easy to look at so much of what we consume and just consume it and not think about the implications of the characters or anything else. But in this show, it's impossible to get through the entire thing without feeling a lot of things and thinking and processing and understanding. And I mean, it's a
great show.
Yeah.
No, any other memorable episodes? Like for me, as someone diagnosed with depression, am I allowed to swear on this one in the show, or we can bleep that?
No F-bombs?
No.
Okay, no. Okay, so there's an episode.
I'd rather us not get yelled at.
Stupid.
Later on.
So there's an episode called "Stupid Piece of Excrement."
Sure.
Where you're basically inside Bojack's head the entire time, like, hey, that's me on the TV. And I'm like, wow, oh, geez.
Yes.
Oh, no, this hurts. Why did I do
identified
this?
with this way too much.
Yeah.
But I feel like they tackle, like I said in my opening thing, they tackle things really well.
Yeah, they do. I would say I can't really recall if this is an episode. It's more of my favorite thing that unfolded, despite it's hard to say that it's the most disturbing thing because of the deer. So the deer thing is really disturbing at its fullest.
There's a reason it keeps coming back.
Yes, exactly. But for me, something that is at least equally disturbing but handled so interestingly is I want to call her Britney Spears so bad, because she basically is kind of a Britney Spears, knockoff, if that's even possible.
Yeah, I can't remember her name. It's one of those two-name names. It's like...
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Oh, no, it's something Ann, isn't it? Or yeah, something like that, yes. She's the kid star of the sitcom that Bojack is known for, and for which she's also known. But none of these people who worked together ever talk to each other again. Until they start to, and things start to unfold and unravel. And what you find out about where her life went based upon being on that show with Bojack he begins to see for the first time, I think, how his entire life has been a series of impacting people negatively without realizing how negatively he's impacting them, and then later on finding out from them or from second parties who knew them just how much their encounters with him, their years spent with him, messed up their lives. And it's an incredible corollary between how he really feels about his own upbringing, how he feels that had it not been for the parents that he had, he would not be as dreadful of a horseman as he is. And the problem with it is if you watch the thing unfold, you can't argue with those positions.
And unfortunately, with her, it's too late.
It's too, yes, exactly, and
Damage is done.
It's exactly, and it's
the episode where stuff goes down.
Yeah.
That's one of the best episodes. Especially the ending is one of the most hard hitting.
I agree. Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's a great show. Everyone should watch it. All right, so
I don't have a smack. I'm sorry.
It's also very funny, guys. So
no, it is. It really is. It's very, very funny. It's very funny. Okay, I'm gonna do.
I'm terrified now.
I'm trying to think of a smack. It would be beneficial if all three of us could do it, but I'm just gonna do a.
Do it.
So
do it. Do it. Do it.
Bojack, Diane, Mr. Peanut Butter.
Okay.
I'm marrying Mr. Peanut Butter, and I don't care what you all say.
Disregarding disregarding the fact that they're animals for a second.
Well, yes, because the three of them are in a weird love triangle. So
Yeah,
there you go.
We know Mr. Peanut Butter has the body. I'm going Snog.
Okay.
Marry Diane. Unfortunately, kill Bojack just because of the danger to him.
You would marry Diane. That's interesting.
I mean, if she's good enough for the bison towards the end of the series.
Oh yeah, he's good though. I love that bison. Okay, that's fair. I will. Okay, full disclosure. I'm killing Diane. I loathe everything to do with her.
I remember you saying that you weren't a huge fan of Diane.
Yeah,
she's a complicated character.
She is, and that is the only way that I can appreciate her is thinking of her as a character. She's an incredibly written character, and I think if she had been written any less incredibly, I would hate her less. And that's kind of part of just Diane's characters that you can't. I don't think you can have lukewarm feelings about Diane if you've seen the show.
Yeah, I know. I can see that.
You might have lukewarm feelings about other characters, but you're not going to have that with Diane, which I think is a testament to the strength of her position in the show. But I would kill her. I would, honestly, no one in the show except Princess Caroline, but that's because Princess Caroline is in love with Bojack for so long before she actually realizes that she knows that being in love with him is dangerous before she knows that she's really in love with him or the depths to which she's really in love with him. So I would say that I would snog Bojack because none of the characters complain about this. None of them.
That's true.
They all complain about many other things to do with Bojack, as they should. But none of them are like, yeah, that was a bad time. No.
So does that mean you're marrying Peanut Butter?
Oh, that does mean I'm marrying Mr. Peanut Butter,
Yeah,
which is probably the worst decision ever.
His character is it gets more complicated towards the end of the show.
Yeah, and he's also just a terrible husband.
Yeah.
As we see more than once. So that's the episode, folks, I guess.
Next time we're going to talk about, maybe what we're going to talk about for the rest of the year.
Thanks for letting me rant at the microphone like I did on the last birthday episode.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point of the birthday